Case A. A teacher in mathematics wanted to determine how well the learners have learned their lessons on fractions. After 2 weeks of drills and exercises, the teacher wanted to record how well the learners have learned about fractions. The specific learning competencies taught by the teacher are first, adding the similar fractions, and second, solving word problems involving the addition of similar fractions. The school has an available standardized test on mathematics, but it covers many topics aside from fractions.
First question. What information did the math teacher want to determine among the learners? The teacher wanted to determine on how well the learners have learned as well as the learning progress. Why? To know whether the assessment has been effective or not. So by doing this, the teacher will decide whether to proceed to the next topic or to discuss more about fractions. So question number 2. What is the specific learning target that the math teacher wants to assess? The specific learning target that the math teacher wants to assess are adding similar fractions and solving word problems involving the additions of similar fractions. After the discussion, the teacher will see how the learners are able to apply or to do what they have learned from the topic, which is fraction, based on the specific learning target.
Yes, thank you so much, Ma'am Enalyn, for your explanation and collaboration. Now I will be answering the question number 3, the number 3, 4, and 5. Okay, the number 3 says, if the math teachers assess, is the math teacher assessing what progress or what learners have learned? What do you think? Then for me, it is both. Because of what? Because the first time that he wanted to assess them, he's using what they learned after the lesson that he taught, right? And then after 2 weeks of exam to be assessed again for what they have learned, for what the process is, what they have learned after the maybe formative assessment at the first time. Then the fourth question says, given your specific learning target, which form of assessment is appropriate here? Then for me, it is assessment, educational assessment, formative and summative assessment. Formative in what sense? It is referred in the first time when he wants them to be assessed after the lesson. Then he can use formative assessment without even being grading sometimes because of the new understanding. Then after the 2 weeks of exercises and drills, he can use summative or formative again to know how much they have progressed. The last one, how will the math teacher interpret the results of the learners if they have learned? Then I think he can use a power test maybe, or the criterion reference, so that he can know the standards of how much they have progressed in the study, in the lesson as well. Then it is basically a part of the judgment of the teacher after the summative or formative assessment that he can practice on them based on instruction and based on the criteria that he has given them to understand. And it is important, both things, how much they have learned in the lesson and how much they have progressed in the learning.
Case B. A school principal wanted to determine who among the group of applicants will be admitted to the school. The principal wanted to determine if the learners have learned well in their present grade level. The learners come from different schools, and it is assumed that they all learn the common standards as indicated in the national curriculum. There is an available instrument in the school that determines the important learning competencies based in the national curriculum.
In case B, What information does the principals want to determine about the learners? So first is the principal wanted to determine who are the students will be admitted to the schools. But in order for them to determine, they must determine first the learning of the learners on their present grade. What are the specific learning targets that the principal intends to assess? Basically, the learning targets that the principal needs to assess is the general knowledge or the comprehension of the student, and it will be determined using the placement assessment, which is entrance exam, like in AUP. Before the classes begin, for the new students, they are taking entrance exam in order for the school to classify those students if they are beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Is there an available instrument to determine the information that the principal wants to know among those learners? Yes, there is an instrument, and that's like what I said. It is placement assessment, wherein belongs the entrance exam before the students enter in the university, in order for the schools to determine which classifications they are in. Just like when I said, if they are beginner, intermediate, or advanced. For the teachers or for the school to give accurate strategy in order for the learners to learn another knowledge from the school.
And for the fourth question, given the available standardized instrument, does the principal want to determine what the learners have learned or their potential for future learning? The answer is the principal wants to determine what the learners have learned. Why? Because in order to meet the first demand of the principal to know who will be admitted to the school, the learning of the student should be tested through giving them an assessment task, or it could be an advanced placement exam or the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And the score will be based on the national curriculum standard where they are expected to meet. And for the fifth question, is the principal after the learner's maximum performance? Yes, he is. And for the last question, given that there is an available instrument, how will the scores be interpreted? How will the school principal decide who will be accepted in the school? So the score will be interpreted through the criterion reference test, where it measures the students' knowledge and skills of what they have mastered or learned from their present grade level. And according to the Department of Education, the national curriculum is a set of subjects and standards used by primary and secondary schools that ensures learners learn the same things. Learners are expected for reaching the level and standard of the curriculum. It depends on the age. From the result of the learner's score in advanced placement exam or the National Assessment of Educational Progress is high, the students will be accepted, but if low, they will not be accepted. So that's all, and thank you so much.